Hi, this is Feehan again from the ECG Armory. Continuing on with my Shadow Trooper build. Today I'm going to do some more work on the helmet. I want to do the final assembly, try to get these side pieces actually secured, line it up with the brow, and then start doing some of the screwing and possibly even get to the ears and actually getting that curve exact for the curvature of the tubes over here. The hardest part is really to get that exactly right, and I like a tight fit. Some people don't mind if it's got a little bit of a crack there. I like to get it as tight as possible. And again, if my rough cut here is not good enough or if it's a little off, I'm going to try to take these other ones and cut them to the exact right size so that I make sure it has a nice tight fit. The first step here is really to line it up. You should line up the top trap with the corner of the eye in both spots. Some people like it a little further up from the brow. Like on this helmet, you can see it's about 3/4 of an inch. I like to have it a little lower, like right against the eye, but not touching it. So I want to get mine to be about there, all the way across, and keep it straight all the way across, about that much. So what I've already done is I've done some blue tape inside just to tape approximately where I want it. And the real key here is then drilling the hole and putting a rivet in it to secure it. The riveting is the part that scares me the most, because once you do that, it's pretty much in there and there's not much you can do after you've done that. So I'm going to be very careful about trying to make sure it's as tight as possible across the entire brow. I do it with the trim in place. Some people do it without the trim in place. I like to leave that extra bit of space just to make sure the brow trim fits and isn't too squished around the entire thing. But you also do want a tight seal between these two pieces so that there's not a lot of movement and there's not a big gap there. I also may put a little glue on the trim to make sure that it stays in place as well. So I kind of roughly got it lined up as I think I had shown you in the last video. I'm not crazy about how these are lining up. They're a little off. It's going to be a really tight fit. I've done some additional trimming to try to line them up a little better. Let me take this tape off and show you what I'm talking about here on the tube section over here. Usually the back would overlap over the front like this, and then you put the ear here, and this you'd put a screw through here that holds the ear on. But in this case, on this side, there was barely any plastic to meet here, so I'm going to have to probably do it under. And that little dimple here, I trimmed that down a little bit, trimmed a little bit extra off, so that maybe I can get it like this and get a screw through there so that these meet all the way through on the inside without too much of a gap. And the ear should cover this little gap here. In order to do that, I got to get the trim in place. I got to try to line it up as best I can, and then go ahead with the drilling, which is pretty much the scariest part. Let me take the tape off on this side just so I can play with it a little, and then I'll retape it when I'm sure I got it in the spot that I want it, because I might have a little play here. See, now I can move it around, and again, I want to get it to about this point with this right in line with the eye, the corner of the eye. So the trap should just touch the corner of the eye and be in line with the point here on the bottom of the teardrop here. And I'm going to put a screw right here, which will a screw hole, which I'm going to put a rivet through, and that should be able to line up as best as possible with the ear. So let me see if I can line that up. I might have to go a little further over, and again, because I want to make sure that this is going to be able to meet up with this, which it looks like it will be. So I'm going to hold that in place as best as I can. Actually, let me put some tape behind it just to make sure. This is some blue tape I'm just using just to secure it in the back so that I don't have any wiggle or movement as I do it. Just going to throw a piece of tape back there just to line up exactly where I want it, to hold it in place. As I screw it. So I'm a little higher. There we go. Make sure the tape is holding. that brow up a little bit. Just work it a little. So that it's about at that point, right like that. I already got this hole, so I'm just going to do another one through the back. Should be better. Let's see how that lines up. Let's see with the brow trim in place. Oop, popped it out. Let's get that back in there. See how that lines up with the ears. Okay, that looks pretty good. That looks like we got just the right amount there. Let me just check on the other side where that's going to land. I pull that tight, and that looks like it's right on the corner. Okay, so I'm going to secure this. Now to secure the rivet, you have to put a washer on the back so that when the little ball pops through, I'll show you here. So when the little ball pops through, it'll stop at that washer. So I'm going to use my rivet gun here. Stick that all the way in. Hold this together as I'm doing it. I'm going to squeeze. Go a little further. Squeeze. And it should pop. There we go. Okay, so that's riveted in there really good. That's a really good way to connect something quickly. We use that on the we used to use that on the sniper plate. We don't do it anymore, but we used to. And that would keep it on very good. And as you can see, it pulled the ball through and then got stuck with the washer there. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And this is just the initial connection. We're also going to put screws through the ears that actually do the final connection between the front and back of the helmet. Notice here too, I'm also using just a little rag here just so I don't get any scratches on this as I'm manipulating this around. Try to line that up, make sure I got the trim pushed all the way up so that I get the right bead here on exactly how far I want it. And as I'm doing this with my thumbs, I'm using a little pressure to kind of push this right against there so that I don't have any slack. You don't want any slack across the front from the back as much as possible. You want to get that out of there so that it's nice and tight and there's not a lot of movement. Once we put the other screws in, there won't be any movement, but we don't want any movement as we're messing around with this. Okay, so now this is going to go like that with the back folding over, and you notice there is a huge gap there. Don't worry about it. We're going to cover that with the ears, but I want to make sure let me make sure I got all the slack out. And it's sitting right where I want it on the eyes. A little higher on this side. I want it to be even the whole way across. That looks pretty even. And again, I'm trying to get the slack out, doing a little pressure just to pull it so that I'm sure that I'm over here as much as possible. Looking pretty good. Just doing one more fitting here, just looking at it the whole way across. Again, it's coming down a little. I want it to go up a little. There's a little gap between the brow and the trim. I'm just going to push that up with my thumb a little bit. It's more like up about here. across there. Okay, and I think we got a good thing there. Let me see. Let me do a little more fooling with it, just to make sure. I want this up a little bit more. So I'm going to just push up on this a little. Again, with my thumb, I'm kind of keeping it in place as I work my way across and putting some pressure to keep them together as tightly as possible. And then I'll drill through both pieces of plastic and put a rivet in there. I'm holding it really tightly with my thumb as I do this. See how this looks with a rivet in it. And if not, we can make another secondary hole. Let's see if we put a rivet in there. Let me use a white one. Again, it's not going to matter. It's going to be covered by the ear. Let's see. And it's a little cockeyed. So I might have to go down a little bit. Let's see if we can make that work, or if it's a little crooked. Yeah, that's a little off, so we're going to have to go down a little bit more. I'm going to use my thumb. Make sure we're even. I want to get this nice and straight. Yeah, that's off a little bit. So we're going to go over here, and we're going to try to do it. The secondary hole. I always have that problem with the secondary hole. And we're going to make a second hole here. See if that's a little better. And that looks much straighter there. There is some wiggle room there, and we can use some glue to secure it. You can see I can manipulate it a little bit. Just try to hold that in place as I manipulate it a little, make sure it's going to be straight. Should line up right with that hole. Let's see. Second hole, yeah. And I don't want to send this one home until I'm exactly sure. So let me just see. I still think it could be manipulated a little bit before we send everything home. It's looking pretty straight. Even slightly off here, it's going to throw us off. So I don't want to risk it. Let me take that out and just double check again. And it's going to be somewhere in between. Let me see. And make sure the brow trim is on properly. as I manipulate this, I'm just seeing. Let's see. I'm just going to lay it down and see exactly how straight we are. It still looks a little off to me. And I don't want to secure that rivet until I'm sure. Let me see where this is in relation to the other hole. It's even further down. That looks like it's a little too far. And it still looks like this hole. The hole that we made, I think that is right. I think it just needs a little manipulation once we get it in there. Nice and straight. Okay, very good. I'm going to make one more hole. I think we got it now. Okay. So the trial and error there, but I think we got it now. Let's see. With this hole. That looks straight. And I'm going to put the washer on and send this home. A little teeny washer. Get that on there. Push this all the way in. And this will make a nice tight connection. Full here. There we go. Very nice. Okay, now that's looking really nice. Just a little teeny brow space, which is what I wanted here. Across the front. Looks like it's pretty even across the entire way. Brow trim's looking good there. I like that lower brow rather than it being higher up, and that looks really good. Now we got to work on the ears, and this is going to be the tough part, is getting the ears just the right shape so that they will cover up this entire space here, be flush against the helmet, and cover any of these inconsistencies between the back and the front. And you can see here from the side, as I put this on and try to manipulate this and try to get this over this curve, the shape is not matching exactly. It's a little off. I'm going to have to match that shape as best as possible, and I think I might have taken a little too much off on the top part, so I may have to use another one to be able to cover that flushly, as flush as possible. Let's see as I try to bend that in there a little bit, along with the back. Try to meet them up. Let's see how it looks. So that's covering the space, but I'm going to need to take off a little more to get this to fit properly. Okay, one way you can do that is with a shape getter, a shape copier. What I'm going to do is just try to get these together as best as I can. I might even rivet this just to hold this. because I'm not happy, again, how they didn't meet properly. Actually, let me do that so that I have something to work with here. And these meet up a little better. Get my drill and just make a hole and rivet this bottom part here. Let me get my safety gloves on just because I don't want to drill through my hand. I might even use a heat gun to push that down a little bit. We'll see how that works out. Now again, this will be covered by the ear, so I'm not that concerned. So, perfect. I'm just going to put a rivet here, just for this particular issue that we have on this side of the helmet. Just to hold this in place and keep this together. Rivet in here. Okay, that should make it easier for me to manipulate this. And again, I might use a heat gun to melt that a little, because I'm not happy how this is very far away. Let's see if I can move that. That'll be hidden by the ear. Okay, so let's see the shape we're going to need. I'm going to stick this on here and just see what kind of shape I need here. Just to kind of get the basic form and see how much it matches with what I already have. And we're going to need to take a little more off the middle, I think, to make this work. Let me get my pencil. Because what we're going to have to do is drill through these two holes right through the helmet and then secure it with 2 screws and then 1 screw down here. And right now the shape is not form-fitting to the ear, so I'm going to have to do some trimming and some manipulation to make that happen. On the back it's actually forming pretty well. It's the front that needs a little work. Let me push that on there as best as I can and see. What I think I'm going to need is to take off a little more here. And then we'll see how we make out there. Now to take this off, I'm not going to do the back because the back actually is meeting up almost perfectly, which I'm very happy about. The back, just by eye when I did it, matches almost perfectly, so that's great. It's the front's a little off. Needs to be a little more in the middle there. This middle section has to be taken off a little more, and then a little closer cut to the bottom, and I think I'll do a little closer cut on the bottom and the back here. Now to do that, we're going to use our Dremel and try to shave down the plastic appropriately to try to meet that curve. And again, if we screw it up, we got another one, so we're not going to be too concerned. And what I'm using is the sanding tool. This takes off a lot at a time, so you got to be very careful with this. So I'm looking at my pencil line, and I'm going to just try to follow it as I go through it. Sorry, I'm going to take off a little here. Just to make the ear sit flush. See how that looks. As you saw, it did take off a good amount of material. I'm just going to shave it down a little bit with the sandpaper just to see how we look. And while I got this here, I'm also going to drill the 2 holes. A little too far there. Let's do this one. I'll do it slower so I don't catch anything. Good. I'll do the other one while I got it here. Now I'm not going to drill the hole in the bottom yet because I want to see exactly where I'm going to do that. Usually it's right in the middle, but we'll see. And also I'll do this other ear once we get to that other side. Okay, now let's see if that's looking any better before I continue with the carving. Okay, that's looking a lot better. A lot better. It's almost there. And I just want to get it just so it hides that rivet and it covers the hole in the back, which I think we're almost there. I think in order to get this down to where I need it to be, I got to take a little more off this edge here. So let me just do a little more carving there, and we should be good to go to attach this. again, I'm trying to hide that ridge there. I'm trying to get this to fit in that ridge as best as possible, which now it's really fitting nice. There's a little gap there, but I think I'm going to live with that gap. It's not that bad. And it's dark, so I'm not going to see it. And it's covering the hole, and it's about straight up and down, so I think we're looking pretty good. And again, the back I was very happy with. It's meeting very well. Okay, let's see if I can get it so that it covers everything. Okay, almost there. Now I am tilting this a little and cheating a little bit because I do want to cover this hole here, because as again this helmet did not match up as well as I was hoping. But I think once we get the screws in there and we get everything assembled, it's going to look very, very good. The key is going to be the angle that I connect it, and then the bottom screw is going to cement it. So we're going to get it right on this, covering this thing, the outer part. I'm going to put one screw in there, and then I'm going to figure out the bottom, and then I'll do the secondary screw to send it home. Actually, what I'd like to do is maybe trim off a little more in the ear itself. Do I have to? No, I think I'll be okay. I think right there we're good. Let me see if I can hold that and get all the way through with the other screwdriver, with the drill. Going to stick a screw all the way through. I have a set of screws here from Trooper Bay, which provides some great stuff. It came with some screws, but I like theirs better. They're not quite as long, because I think they don't need to be as long. And we're going to see how these fit. See how these secure everything. A washer there. Let me get the ear. Put the screw through there. And again, there's still going to be some wiggle room here as this top one can rotate. But eventually we're going to eliminate that when we do the second screw in the ear. That'll pretty much secure it permanently. I'll get the washer on. Lost the washer and the screw. Nut. The lost my nut here, my washer. There it is. Washer, let me get my nut. And once I secure this, you'll start seeing it take shape, and you can manipulate it a little bit. And I should do that. There's my screw head. Let me get a little small screwdriver. And just tighten that a little bit. Seems a little too big. Hold on. This one should be thin enough. Just tightening it a little bit as I'm holding the nut. Be careful here not to scratch anything. Okay, that's coming together nice now. I'm leaving it a little loose just so I can have a little wiggle room because I want it to be a little more straight. Just enough to cover that hole and just enough for this to be able to squeeze into there as best as possible. So let's see how this is going to shape up here. Okay, so I want to get this so that the next one I want to secure is the bottom all the way through so that the ear sits flush with this and then everything fits together. So I'm going to drill right through the bottom, right through there, and then I'm going to trim off the excess on the bottom piece here. Let me get my drill. And I put on my safety glove just to be sure. I'm going to, again, drill through my finger. And I put a screw right through the bottom here. A little higher up because we're going to have that we're going to have some rubber stuff on the bottom here. Okay, very good. We got through the first one. Let me get through the rest of it. Let me make sure it's still lined up here. There we go. I want it to be really tight in there as best as I can get it, while still covering up that hole in the back here. Let me just make sure. That looks good. Okay, I'm gonna get another screw. That's going to be the bottom screw. The washer in the middle in there. just tightening that up. And I'm going to tighten more with the screwdriver here as I hold the nut here. Make sure I'm holding the nut here. I can't really feel it with the clothes on. That relatively tight there. And now the last piece we want to do is get that last hole in there. And again, I might use a heat gun to try to melt this a little bit and form it a little better, but this is not bad. A little bit of a gap, but not too good. Okay, let's get that last screw in there. Hole. Go. And we'll get a nut and a screw in there as well. Okay, it's coming along well. And let's do the other side and get that one secured as well. And see what the shape is looking like on this one. This one I think is a little closer. I think once we get this one on, we'll be in business. Let's see. The shape's a little off. I'm gonna have to put this one a little further down. Slight tilt. We're gonna have to take a lot off of this one, off the bottom portion. Yes, the bottom part we're going to have to get a lot off of there. You can see there to make sure that it's flush with there. Okay, let's get the tool here and I'll get my gloves on. See how that's fitting on there. take a lot off the bottom part here, like we did on the other one. Should be a little more flush. Let's see how that fits now. Put it right against the ear here, push it down and see. Oh, see, it's very close to the popper, but I've never had that happen before, but I'm going to just take that away and just drill. We'll line it up later. I've never had it that close to the popper. That's funny that we happened to line it right up. That's why it popped the popper, because it was so close to it. Get that in the hole. Washer in there. Let me get my washer. I dropped it. Washer on there and the nut on there. use my screwdriver to just tighten this a little bit and see how we're shaping up here. Just tightening the screw, just hand tight there, just so I can line up the rest of the ear here. I'm going to squeeze the rest of the ear in there, and I'm going to try to figure out our spot for the bottom hole. Some of this might need to be trimmed a little bit. It's actually coming along pretty good. Far down as possible. I'm going to hold it with my work glove here as we put in the last screw there. And this one is going to make it through two things of plastics. This is going to be a hard operation, but I'm going to try to get it all in there. Right in the middle here. Actually, this should be trimmed more. I'm looking at the other side. Yeah, this needs to be trimmed off a little more. And before I do that, let me get that with the scissor. This is way too big on this side. This is actually coming in much closer than I would have anticipated. Trim this last piece off there. A little extra piece here I need to see. To trim that off, I didn't finish trimming it. There's a little like 1/4 inch there that shouldn't have been there. Okay. I'm going to hold this in place as I try to drill through all 3 pieces of plastic, which is going to be a challenge, but that's how it's going to be. Make sure I get everything lined up. Actually, let me drill the hole first for that. While I'm holding this tight. The other piece of plastic, which is a shame. I didn't. So I got to do that again. So I don't want to have to do it, but I got to do it again. I want to catch all 3 pieces of plastic, and that one did not catch. Make sure I'm catching it this time. Yep, I'm on there now. Okay, that's much better. Get our screw in there. All 3 pieces of plastic very nicely. And now we just got to get a washer and clean this off a little bit. Get our nut. Just hand tight so we get it. And you might see this isn't matching perfectly on the bottom. This is all going to be covered with that rubber seal on the bottom, so it's not going to make much difference. This is all going to be hidden. I might actually trim this off a little bit more. I'm going to trim this off a little more so that it matches up. And then when we put the S trim on there, it's going to look a lot better. Turns just to get a little tighter. And we'll tighten those up a little more as we go on. Now we can see we got a nice brow trim there. Ears are looking pretty good. This one I'm not thrilled about. This one's pretty close. This one's a little off, but I may be able to heat gun and melt that a little bit and form it a little better before I put the other screw in all the way. And this one I got to do the second screw. Let me see if we can get that positioned and we can start working on that second screw. Okay. I'm going to get that lined up and I'm going to just push that. Screw my nut in there. Some plastic shavings I'm getting rid of here. Just get the nut on. Okay. Let me tighten that up a little bit. And there you have it. We have the basic assembly done. We got the helmet together. We still got to do the lenses. We got to do the frown screen, and we got to do the S trim. I can do a test fit of the S trim just to show you what we're going to be doing with that. This is what the S trim looks like here. And basically what you do is you put this all around the bottom of the helmet so that it kind of hides that seam that's on the bottom. And we're going to be putting this all the way around, so you'll see, like when I put it here and I trim it a little further, you'll see it hide the bottom of these ears very, very easily. Especially when I trim it a little closer. And this will finish off the bottom of the helmet. And you just work this around. I'm just going to test fit it on now, just quickly to show you kind of what it's going to look like on the bottom here. And usually before I put this on, I do the final trimming. I'll do some polishing, then I'll do the stickers and the painting, because I'm going to paint the frown here, the Boker piece here, and I'm going to paint the teeth. And I have decals for the traps and the tear areas. Okay, I'm not going to cut it yet, but when you do the test fitting and you make sure it fits around the entire thing the way you want it, you trim off the excess. Because I might do some further trimming, I'm not going to do that now, but just to show you kind of what that finished bottom edge will look like and how it hides that bottom edge of the ears there. Again, it's still got a little space within the ears, even with that shaping I did, so I might have to use a little heat to straighten those out a little further. And then we put the lenses. We have a mylar type material I'm going to put behind the lenses, and usually glue it down, hot glue it down in the back. And I also had gotten from Trooper Bay this optional strap that you can use, and this strap can be hooked into the screws that are on the inside here, and you'd be used as a chin strap to keep the helmet from wobbling when you have it on. So there you go for today. I'll see if I'm going to do some. I might do some other brief trimming, just trimming this out a little bit. This is the knee plate and the shoulder bells. These I didn't do yet because they really don't require assembly. They just need that bottom edge trimmed and a little trimmed off the sides, which I'll quickly do probably in a speed up video at the end of this video. And then we'll finish up the helmet and do some other stuff next time. Thanks everybody.